Want to learn how poetry can help you with writing picture books? Then this is the show for you. Hi, I'm author Tonya Duncan Ellis with another episode of Write This, my author interview show. And today I'm thrilled to welcome Amanda Davis, a children's author who also teaches children about poetry and utilizes it in the writing of her books. So I'm so excited to learn about her newest releases and how she uses poetry to create her picture books. I see that she's joined us. So I'm going to invite her in so that we can get started. This week, it's going to be a lot of fun. I love poetry myself, so I'm excited to see how she uses it in her work. Hey, Amanda, how are you doing?
Hi,
I'm
Tanya. I'm
doing
doing
great. I'm
well. How are
so happy
you?
that you had the time to come on with me and talk about your new books and how you use poetry and your art and creativity with your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a topic I'm very excited
Yeah,
about
and I had fun.
sharing and
I
digging
went
into
through
with you.
your website and I liked seeing some of your own art as well because you're multifaceted. So we'll talk about that too.
I
Now
try.
tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you based and tell us about your books.
Yeah. So I am Amanda Davis. Hi, everybody. I am based in Massachusetts. I apologize if I'm talking a little bit quieter because it is around nap time for my 2-year-old daughter. So she's napping and I'm trying not to wake her up. Um, but yeah, so I'm here in Massachusetts, and my background is in English communications, which was actually a lot of journalism and like PR and writing for advertising and things like that. And I also minored in studio art. So I have loved art and writing for as long as I can remember. And then I went back and I got my degree to teach art. So I taught art for 12 years. My first year was at the middle school level, and then I did the rest of the time at the high school level and started writing and illustrating children's books after I took a course back in 2012, I think it was. And I realized that that particular craft combines all of my loves, which are writing and art and stories. So that got me really excited, and I just dove in headfirst, trying to learn all I could about the craft of writing for children and how to find my voice, which in the end sort of ended up being using my lyrical voice, which is I used to write poetry when I was young, and I still do, and finding a way to weave that into my story. So we hear a lot about finding our voice, like what is our writing voice and style. And I think I have found that because I finally, like I said, found a way to weave my love for poetry into my writing for children. And that's kind of led me to
Yes.
where I am
Now
today, I
tell us
guess.
about your books. So do you have two books out and another one coming? Or
Yes, so I have two books out. My first one was 30,000 Stitches, The Inspiring Story of the National 9/11 Flag. That was a nonfiction picture book. Moonlight Memories just came out in June. And then I don't have the book with me because it's in my daughter's room and I can't go in there right now, but I have illustrations and poetry in an anthology through the Writers Loft, which is a group here in Massachusetts. And it was a really cool anthology. It had like 70 artists and writers, both veteran, like Jane Yolen, because she's from like around the New England area too, to newbies like me at the time. And I'm going to have some more work in their newest anthology that's coming out in December. And yeah, I have another book coming out. I have two more. One of them's unannounced. The one that just got announced is my author illustrator debut, which actually stemmed from a poem that I wrote in college. And the unannounced one is another nonfiction one, which combines human and animal bonds with topics of, again, like healing and loss too. That tends to be the theme that's in my
right,
first
that's
several
so
picture
exciting.
books.
I had meant to ask you if you were going to ever illustrate your own book. So you've got that coming out. So that's exciting. Now,
Yeah,
I have a question
2025.
about that. So, how is that? I know my first picture book's coming out in spring of 2024. So,
Yeah.
I wrote it and then the illustrator did her thing. So, how is it when you're doing
Mhm.
everything in tandem? Did you put it together? Or how does that work?
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations to you. I think you just showed the cover
Thanks. The
recently,
cover
right?
is
We got to
not
see the
finished
cover.
yet, so I'm hoping out soon.
Oh. Mm, hmm. Very exciting. Um, yeah, so it's been a different process. I mean, I submitted for the one that I'm illustrating, I submitted my dummy, and they wanted to acquire both the text and the art, which was awesome. And we actually haven't started the process. I just got matched up with the editor who I'm going to be working with, and I think we'll probably get started. They said November, so soon.
Oh,
And so I don't really know yet. I'm a little bit nervous, but also excited. It will be, yeah, my first time learning this and seeing how it goes. But so far, I'm going to be working with an editor, and I'm assuming we'll get the manuscript
mhm.
polished up first, which is typically how it works on the author side too. We polish that, then we send it to the illustrator, and then the illustrator works from there, and then we usually don't hear for a little bit. So,
Yeah, sounds so
yeah.
fun. Now,
Yeah.
I enjoyed your
Yes.
poems I saw the haikus on your website because I love haikus myself. It's for haikus, I don't, for
Hmm.
plural, I don't know. But I love writing haiku. And it's funny because even years ago, before I started writing children's books, I used to work with kids and I would teach them haiku. So it's really odd that now I'm writing, and I love writing picture books, like you say, because of the lyricism and basically you're writing a poem. So how do you
Hmm.
incorporate that into your writing or with?
Yeah, that's a great question. It took me a while to figure it out. I love haikus too, just going back to that. The haiku from Two thing that I started during the pandemic was just so much fun. It was a great way to um, keep the creative juices flowing because they're so short, the haikus, that you can kind of just do it in a short amount of time. Um, and I just taught a little workshop virtually with a fourth grade class, and we did haikus from twos using the book that they're reading. And that was so much fun too. So yeah, it took me a while to figure out how to weave in poetry into picture books. And at first I didn't even really think about that could be done. But I think after working at it and practicing, it took a lot of kind of rearranging my structure, like learning how to even visually, like what my manuscript could look like if I'm writing it with more of a poetic eye, I guess. For example, I like to break up my manuscript into what could look like stanzas, so like bigger spaces in between the page turns. And I think a lot of it has to do with language, using language that sounds more lyrical. For me, it's using more spare text, which is interesting because I'm a little bit more of a verbose talker. So the fact that my writing tends to be, and I mean, I pare it down, but um, my writing tends to be a little bit more spare and like lyrical in that way. I think that's how I found my poetic voice, is just more spare text, kind of playing around with the sentence structure, using like longer lines versus shorter lines, thinking about punctuation or no punctuation, or where the line ends, like breaking the lines a little bit differently in different places than maybe I normally would in a more traditional way of writing the manuscript. So all of those things, I think, are things that I have taken from my love for poetry and tried to weave
Now I
into
have a quick
my
question.
writing of
And
children's
while
books.
you were talking, a bird is like flying into a window. So I'm like looking, going, "Oh my goodness!" He's flown into the window 3 times. While I
Oh
hope
no,
so. I don't know what
is he
he's doing,
okay?
but because anyway,
Oh,
when you're writing your stories, do you start with the storyline and then turn it into a poem, or do you start with the idea of the poem? If someone is thinking of making their a little more lyrical, how
mm.
is it start, or is there a process, or is it just something that?
I've done it both ways. So like I said, the one that I'm illustrating, I wrote it as a poem. It was actually a poetry class in college, so I wrote it as a poem, and then it's evolved and changed a lot since then. So I feel like that one started with a poem, knowing it was a poem, and then thinking, maybe I can make this into a picture book. And then for like 30,000 Stitches, Moonlight Memories, and some of my other ones, um, I've kind of just had the idea first and written it. And then when I revise, I'm looking more at, like the things I was saying, like the line breaks or the sentence structure or my word choices, um, reading it aloud, seeing how it all flows together, breaking my pages, page breaks, and things like that. So I think I try to just get the ideas out first, and that's what I lean more towards now. And then I restructure it, um, I think, to make it a little bit more lyrical and kind of experiment with things
Now,
and see what
when
I can
writers
do
are
in that
working on a
way.
picture book and want to incorporate these lyrical elements, what kind of things should they be thinking about? Or what are you, when you're doing this, when you're going back and adding that in, what are you thinking about?
Mm. I always like to think about, even when I taught art, I'm like a very layered thinker. So in both of my books, my first two books, they have metaphors. I feel like I use metaphor a lot, which is something we see in poetry as well. Um, and so, for example, in 30,000 Stitches, when I'm talking about, and this is another poetic device, I use refrains in the book. I feel like this is actually a good example. So the fabric of America is a refrain in the book. And when I go back to metaphors, like the fabric of America is the
Yeah.
flag, but it's also referring to the people. And so, like, the flag heals, but the people are healing too. And so, that I feel like adds that layer of kind of lyricism and like deeper meaning. And then the refrain, the fabric of America, I filled in a word like throughout the story. So, we have the fabric of America remained, waited. What else do we have here? It's not on
So
every page, but
on your
emerged,
website, I
strong.
haven't read your book, but I saw you saying that the flag had become tattered back through
Hmm.
America and then it was put back together. That is so cool that you've got this. Yeah.
It's really neat. It's really all about community and coming together to overcome hard things, which is something that we can always continue to work on. But yeah, there was so much symbolism there that I felt like that was an opportunity to include that in the story somehow and in a way that felt a little bit more, yeah, poetic, I guess, and not as straightforward. And so I used that refrain to show the transformation of the flag and the people. So the words that I chose at the end of the refrain really show the
This is
transformation.
beautiful.
Um, yeah, so refrain is one that, and in some of my workshops that I do with kids, we talk about refrains, which oftentimes you hear in songs too, right? It's that line or the chorus that you hear over and over. Um, and I think for me, each story should have that like seed woven in, that through line, maybe whatever you want to call it. In Moonlight Memories, I didn't have a refrain, but I did ask like visually. So like visually, I feel like you can weave in maybe more like whimsical, lyrical things into it as well. This one has a swirl that shows up on the page, which I had suggested as a way to show. So this is about parent loss, and remembering your parent through art. And yeah, I had suggested some sort of visual element to show the memory of Mama always around the main character, Piper. And to me, that kind of feels like poetic too. So it can also be like visual, I guess, visual lyricism, or I think oftentimes we think of, and I'm just coming up with this now, like I think we think of poetry as, just the written form, but it can also kind of be the visual. The visual has beauty in that sense too. To feel that lyricism and have it
Right.
complement the words in that way. The
Oh, yeah. And what
movement.
you said earlier about even with music and things, like it all kind of goes together. writing these picture
Mm-hmm.
books because with the lyricism, it reminds me of a song in ways, with lives and things like
Mm-hmm.
that too.
Mm-hmm.
This is really fun. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds so, and it's very impactful. The way
Yes. Yeah. And especially with the refrain, I think it, you know, I mean, this is for ages 4 to 8. I say adult, grown-ups too, everyone. But I think with the refrain, like it's something that even maybe the younger audience can follow. So maybe if they're not getting all of the details of the main text, like the refrain, I hope is something, a layer that they can follow along with and understand and see the evolution of the flag and the people through just the refrain. So it can, like I said, it can just be another layer
mm,
added to the story that can be an interesting way to get another one of your
right.
themes
Now, you mentioned
across.
that you have another book coming out. Is it also lyrical? You said it was nonfiction. Can you share anything about it, or is it? Oh,
I don't know what I can share. We've been working on it for like a year and a half now, or maybe more than that. Um, it is lyrical, and this one has undergone a lot of revisions. So it started out with a very lyrical, like main narrative, and now it's a dual narrative. Um, and again, having to have some sort of, yeah, element that weaves it all together. And one side of it, one side of the parallel narrative is written more in a lyrical way, and the other side, which is more of like a biography, is written in a different style too. So that was very interesting trying to meld the two together. Hopefully I did a good job. We'll see.
that sounds.
um, yeah, I don't know how much more else I can share about that one, but it's about a journey of that animals take to remember their rescuer that passed away. And so I think too, especially with topics that can be a little bit heavier, that poetic voice
Mhm.
can help soften things. And um, I mean, I hope that that's the case with my first 3 books all have elements of loss and hope and healing in them. And loss can be something difficult, a difficult topic to broach with kids. I think more for us adults than maybe the kids. But yeah, I think having the lyricism and the poetic voice can bring a little bit of levity to,
And
a
I
weightier
notice you'll notice with
topic.
even novels in verse, they deal with more heavy.
Mm, mm-hmm. Yep. I love the novels in verse. That's on my, I hope to one
Started
day
working
do
on
that.
one, and it helped me doing all these picture books and being in the 12 by 12 picture book challenge. Writing picture books has helped me. Now it hasn't sold yet and it's not done, but I felt like I couldn't even do it before, but that's kind of helped me be able to start it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your poems, because I
Yes.
only I read a couple of haiku, and of course I forgot it, but read it in a split second, and it stuck with me. So I want to go back and read some more of those.
Thank you. I think if anyone's listening now to kind of like wondering, how do I do this? How do I write, lyrical voice? I loved writing the haiku. So the haiku from 2 is just something I made up, but it was basically just like taking a book. I have this one
Ooh,
right here right now, which is on my to be read list.
no, I
Open,
have, but I
yeah,
love
have you read
Jacqueline
it?
Woodson. I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Poetic voice right here. um, but haiku from 2 is just opening up to a random page, closing your eyes and picking a word, writing that word down, and then doing it again. So you have 2 words that you're working with from a random book, and then you make up a haiku. So if you're stuck, I feel like that's a really good exercise. You don't have to think too much. You just pick 2 random words, and then you write a poem. And that can end up turning into a story or maybe a drawing. And so that could be a starting point too to
and then a
help you if you don't
haiku
really know where to
has
start.
5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
3 lines.
that's
Yep.
great.
5, 7,
Now,
5.
where
Mm-hmm.
can we find
Mm-hmm.
you? Where can people? I mentioned your website, but tell them where they can find you and show You didn't show your books very long. Can you show
I'm really bad at that. I'm surprised I even had them with me right now.
them?
Um, I can be found, my website is amandadavisart.com. And then my Instagram is, oh my gosh, Amanda Davis. Wait, what is it? Oh my goodness, why am I blanking out? Amanda Davis art. No, Amanda Davis
Yes.
underscore art. Okay, right? Okay. And then because I was more active on Twitter before Twitter became whatever it is now. I am still on there. That's Amanda Davis Art. And I'm on Facebook too. So I'm all over the place. You can find me. I'm on Blue Sky now too. Not very active there, but mostly active here. And yeah, my books 30,000 Stitches, the inspiring story of the National 9/11 flag, the true story of the American flag that flew over Ground Zero, got torn, tattered, stored away for a very long time, came back out, and as we were talking about, went on this historic journey across all 50 states to be restored using pieces of retired American flag from all the 50 states. Um, and then Moonlight Memories, which is about losing a parent. I lost my dad when I was young, and I used art and writing as a way to process and heal. So that is Piper. Piper lost her mama, and she's learning how to cope and deal with this loss. And she finds art as a way to do that and as a way to remember her mom. And then my author illustrator debut is called Sometimes Shadow. Um, that one is about living with a parent who has alcohol use disorder and learning how to cope with that, understand the disease. That's also part of my story. My dad had alcohol use disorder, and it was really hard, like being young and not understanding really what it was. So hopefully that will be helpful to a lot of kids. And then there's the unannounced one, which I don't know how much I can share.
You've been very busy, and these books are books that help deal with the social emotional learning and help broach different topics with children. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that they're helpful and useful to all people. And I've just loved sharing them and seeing them in the hands of kids and grown-ups and hearing how they've impacted in positive ways. I think that's been my favorite part in doing the school visits. So I do school visits as well. I do mentoring and critiquing. You can find me on the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning. I do
Okay, cool.
mentoring and
And just
critiquing through there.
listening to you too
Mhm.
makes me see how, as artists, we kind of use our own life experience for even personal healing and creating art for other people. So
Mhm.
this is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, art for me has always been a way to express myself, whether it's through, drawing something or writing poetry or just writing whatever. Even still to this day, I find myself not feeling as great if I haven't done my gratitude journal or been in my studio creating something. So I know that it's something that I need in my life, and I truly believe in the power of the arts and like, what it can do for us and our mental health and making us feel good and sharing our stories. Like that's what's really at the root, I think, of hopefully what I do. And I think as children's book creators, that's what we all do, like sharing our stories and helping encourage others to share their stories and
Yeah, yeah.
learn more about one
Well,
another.
Amanda, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story, sharing all your beautiful work. Everybody, follow her and support her, please. And thank you again for joining me. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see. We'll see you again
Thanks,
another time.
Tonya.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.